for a second. So there we go. So again, thank you all for joining us for the June online supporter update. Today, we're going to be talking about our veteran programs in anticipation for the picnic for the POV in July that will be in honor of the veteran programs at the POV. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Lisa to begin the presentation. So thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me for one moment. I think this should work. Let's see. Okay, can we all see everything? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of go through what veteran programs we offer. I kind of oversee the team from the very high level, but then I have Vanessa and Sue here who are going to touch base on their programs when that pops up. And we do have other staff members on the team who weren't able to make it today. So I'll kind of review their area. So our veteran services program, we really focus on just trying to provide the best care we can to any veterans who are accessing our shelter environment. So safe, secure space, really help them navigate benefits or any resources that they may be eligible for. We really try to we're very person-centered and work with folks on their individual needs and treatment plans or goals. And that can really range from anything. Largely housing is obviously a big one we work on, but sometimes that's mental health, addressing substance use concerns, healthcare in general. We really just try to see the whole person and provide support in any way that we can, and also try to build community as well. So as far as our programs go, we have a number of programs. So we have two that are kind of transitional housing in nature. That's our Valor House program and our Housing Montana Heroes program. And we'll kind of dive in a little bit more as we move forward for those. And then we also have our veteran shelter program and our housing retention program. So I think I'll start with our veteran shelter program. So right now, essentially what that is, it's really time limited. Folks who are maybe first entering the shelter, we'll try to connect with them. And if they're eligible, we'll enroll them. And it essentially allows individuals to have access to a case manager and work on their goals, often in a more light touch way in a shorter term program. Frequently, veterans who enroll in this program might have a next step already in place and they just needed a month or so or two to get by until that works out. So it is much shorter in time and is within the shelter, so to speak. And then as we move forward on to our next programs, those become a little bit higher intensity, so to speak, when it comes to support and what we can offer the veterans in the program. We do also, and I realize I don't have this up here, we do operate as a service center for veterans as well. And essentially what that means is it's all the services that we normally offer to non-veteran populations. So meals, access to the shelter in general, access to showers, restrooms, all of that kind of basic needs stuff is what the VA would term as service center support. So we also operate in that capacity as well. So moving forward, Valor House is one of our transitional housing programs. And it is in a separate building from our Poverello facility off Mullen. And we coordinate with the Housing Authority for this project and have up to 17 units available for veterans. And it's an up to 2-year program. Really at the 1-year mark is when we evaluate next steps for the veterans in the programs, and they are eligible for a housing voucher at that time. So really when folks come into this environment, it is just like any other apartment building, just with secure access. And the individuals staying there do work with our case manager to work on their goals towards independent housing. For some people, that could be as much as really basic, what we take for granted as really basic life skills. So, you know, cooking minor meals, learning how to get your rent paid on time, all the way up to all of the other things I mentioned before. So, and we're really looking at a diverse range of needs and supports that's required when folks are in the program. And I think what's unique about Valor House is because we coordinate with the housing authority, the individuals there do sign a lease. So we often, they try to like encourage them to think about what that means accountability wise, being on a lease and working with a landlord and property manager, and really try to encourage and empower folks to be independent, but know that the case manager is there to provide support as they navigate some of these things. For some people for the first time in years, depending their history with houselessness. So moving forward, we have our Housing Montana Heroes program, and I think I'm going to see if Vanessa is able to speak to that a little bit. It's very similar, but quite different as well to our Valor House program. And Vanessa is our main case manager for that program at the moment. So I'll let you take it away if you want.
Thanks, Lisa. So our Housing Montana Heroes is actually on the second floor of the Poverello. We have veterans upstairs that occupy individual bedrooms or rooms so that they can be in HMH. So as far as our eligibility here, all are welcome, except you have to have an honorable discharge, VA healthcare. So once they get into the program, we focus on goals. So anything relating to housing, and like Lisa said, they could be going through legal problems, maybe supports with getting resources for substance use, mental health. Some are, you know, just discovering how to have a bank account and how to navigate living in the community. So we focus on those things to support them in their long term of getting permanent housing. The other thing that we do is that we have a wide array of veterans here. So we have, you know, from young up to elderly. So we really try to focus on client need, and we meet them where they're at. But it's just a really great program. We do have those that are, like Lisa said, that some have been on the streets for a long time. So sometimes that can, even though we are a 2-year transitional program, sometimes folks will take all that time, and others folks need support in just getting from point A to point B. So really, it's just a great program. We have a lot of support from the staff downstairs that support our veterans, and we just have a really great team. Was there anything else that I could share, Lisa, you can think of?
Not for now. I think that's great. I think similarly, what's really nice about our Housing Montana Heroes program is we have our community room on the second floor right now, which is pictured here. And I just think we get to see a really unique and positive community form, I believe, through the residents who are staying in the program. And that is, it's transitional, so it does change and that community adjusts over time, but it is really inspiring to see the veterans come together and create bonds and just kind of have that shared experience with each other as they work towards their goals to independent housing or whatever else they're working on. I think the next part really about Housing Montana Heroes is we're kind of at a big stage right now where we are looking at relocating the program to our Clark Fork property within the next couple of years. It's still very new, and we are really at the beginning stages of what that will look like, but part of that or most of that purchase is through our capital grant for the Clark Fork, which is really the kind of next door to us in a sense. And our hope is to really move over there and get the veterans from Housing Montana Heroes into more of an apartment and individual unit based program. Whereas right now, how the program operates is it's more dorm style. I feel like that's the easiest way to understand that. And pre-COVID, a lot of the individuals within the program were in semi-private rooms. So it would be two people to a room. Whereas as we move into this new property in the coming years, we're hoping to have individual apartment style units for everyone. So they can have access to their own bathroom, their own kitchen, just their own space. I think the VA is moving towards that in a lot of their programming. So we're excited to be able to do that as well. Sarah, before I move forward, is there anything else on that project you wanted to mention, or does that hit on it?
No, I think you did great. We are hoping to be able to relocate the program by fall of 2023. And so a lot of the work that we're doing right now is relocating the folks who are living in the Clark Fork Inn at this time. So that's kind of where we're at now, and we're really excited to begin construction and make this plan a reality. So if anyone has questions about this, feel free to ask them now, I guess. But otherwise, Lisa, take it away.
Sarah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So are people living at that address now?
Yeah, so it has been permanent apartments for some time. I can't remember how long, but it has transitioned into that like long-term rentals. So yeah, there are I believe 17 folks that are living there at this time. And so we've got a relocation specialist working to get them into new apartments. And that's actually part of the federal funding that we're getting, is to make sure that we're keeping these folks housed. And of course, it's what we do every day. So yeah.
So those aren't people that the Poverello placed at that address. Those are people that were already renting there.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
from the previous property owners.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn.
Well, I'll move forward for now. And again, yeah, as we go through here, feel free to ask questions, or if there's any more on this topic, we can answer them at the end. So moving forward onto our next program, we have our housing retention program. And I'll kind of let Sue take that away. She's been our housing retention specialist in this role for some time now, and can kind of speak to what that piece of the puzzle looks like.
I hate that picture. Can we retake it?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Sue Ellerman, pronoun she, her, and I am that housing retention specialist working with veterans in the community. And essentially, housing retention is what it says, it's like retaining your housing. And so I can follow veterans who leave the program for up to a year, depending on the program, and provide case management services so that they get connected to all the resources that they need to be successful as a tenant and as a person in the community, to help just stabilize and get their feet on the ground and be in a more firm place to be successful as a tenant, and learn how to communicate with the landlord, and fill out a money order, or apply for food stamps, or re-up their housing recertification, things like that they, or connect them with other case management for longer term help. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, I think for when it comes to housing retention with veteran populations, and really any population, historically, it's not a role that has existed very often. Like we've had it for a couple of years now, which is awesome. And I think what we find without the program is a lot of folks might be working with a case manager or someone with like heavy support as they work on getting into housing. And then once they make it, those systems go away a lot of the time, or maybe within a month they do. So folks find themselves kind of, great, they got housing, but then they're like, okay, now what? And when issues or problems come up, they don't necessarily know where to turn. So having programs like our housing retention program is really handy and really beneficial for those who want to participate. It is voluntary because they then have someone they can turn to and problem solve and assess like, okay, what do I need to do to maintain my housing? And again, like for some of us, a lot of those things come very naturally, but for folks who have been unhoused or haven't rented on their own for a long time, some of the things that we may take for granted as really basic can actually be really complex and not necessarily common sense for folks. So it's really great to have Sue and someone to be available to work with folks as they navigate some of these systems. So let's see, I think that's kind of all we got for our slides through the program. So as you can see, we do a lot of the core of the work is the same, but we have a lot of programs and funding through the VA that allows us to do that work. And yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions you all have, and yeah, go from there.
I have another question for Sue. Sue, how open are these people to using your services?
Well, some of them are open and some of them aren't. Some of them, really appreciate the help, the visits, somebody to check in with. And others are like, I've got it, I'm here, go away, I'm okay. I don't want to be part of your system anymore. And then sometimes those people might end up with in a situation where their property management calls me or, reaches out trying to find somebody to help them because they get, behind on their paperwork, or, there are issues that, that they think I can help with, so that, having that community, the connection with the community that the POV has, that I have with the landlords is really helpful. And it keeps people from getting evicted sometimes, most of the time.
Thank you.
As much as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilyn. Does anyone else have any questions, or if any POV staff want to add anything, feel free. But I really appreciate everybody's time, and Vanessa and Lisa and Sue, your insights and just sharing all of your knowledge. And I will be sending out this recording to our usual online supporter update folks so they can tune in at their own time. But if there aren't any questions, I won't.
I'll ask one. Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, with the crazy, like drastic changes in the housing climate just in the last couple of years, how is that impacting your work?
Who wants to field that? Lisa.
The big one. I think it's definitely impacting our work. I think one of the big struggles, and I would say this is across populations, is our housing inventory is just so low that for many of us, when we are working with an individual who's on paper or not ready, they're ready to get into a unit, they can't find one. And that prolongs their time either in our programs or our shelter more than maybe historically, which is really unfortunate because I think I think some of our environments in the past, we've been like, oh, the big barrier is employment and income. Let's get them income and then they're going to be good to go. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is that that's not doing it. Someone might get that job and it's awesome, but the next step of finding housing is really difficult, and especially due to a lot of other barriers, even aside from vacancy, is things like rules that require someone to make 3 times the rent to qualify for a unit without a cosigner. Rental history, I mean, that's always been a big one, but there's just a lot of dynamics that make it really hard to compete with others in the market due to the backgrounds that a lot of the folks we serve have. I don't know, Vanessa and Sue, and maybe even Claire, are there any other things you guys are seeing that I've not touched on with this change?
Everybody's frozen.
Oh, you're back, Sue. I was like, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say that, it's always difficult to come up with all the application fees, and now you have to apply to more places because you really have to spread it out to hopefully get a place. Sometimes people want to rent to veterans, which is awesome, like that is a priority for them. But in this, or it has been, I think more, I don't know, I guess it seems like, even if you have all the money in the world and all the best credit, you still are going to have a hard time finding a place here. And now it's like, we've had there are people who get vouchers and the vouchers time out before they find a place. And then they get, have to go back through. And then it's like, and they time out, so it's just it's not great for any reason. And, the cost of applying for places is more, yeah. And that, like Lisa was saying, like there's this, all these accomplishments, all these things all this work that gets done, that, the housing would be the goal at the end of it. And because you'd get that, after all this work, you've got that housing, and then you don't, and you wait and you wait and you wait,
So does this mean that all the beds in both of those programs are full and that you have a waiting list for people to get into them?
It's definitely a mixture. I think we are nearing full for especially our Housing Montana Heroes and Valor programs. And I think with a lot of the assistance that was available throughout the beginning of the pandemic for other veteran programs in town as well, I think what we've seen is that some folks have gravitated towards hotel stays or other rental assistance supports before coming to like one of our Valor program. Unfortunately, we can't get folks enrolled that same day. We have to go through the application process and all that stuff. So what we see happen a lot is, especially for someone who's in crisis and they're trying to just figure out that next step, they might start the process with us for that program and figure something else out before they enter, which hopefully that's a positive outcome, and we like to celebrate that too. But I would say some red tape sometimes is an unfortunate barrier that we're always working around. But we do have like what we like to call our pipeline. We have a consistent list of folks who are inquiring and actively interested. And it's just determining whether or not they make it to full lease up. But that program, it can be difficult. And then our Housing Montana Heroes program as well. We, technically speaking, when you think of bed space, we are full. But with the pandemic, we have had to, move to a single occupancy versus a double occupancy. And so capacity wise, we can take on more individuals, but we do have to put them up in hotels so we can have them be in an individual unit. And that's where it can get tricky sometimes for a variety of reasons to do with like billing and also just like what's appropriate for that individual veteran. Like, do they need to be in an environment of heavier support, or is a hotel going to be good for what they're needing and wanting in that moment? So it's kind of, surprisingly, we don't have like 20 veterans here ready to be on that wait list, which is great. And I will say, prior to the pandemic, we were, as a community, and I think as a state, getting very close to announcing what we call functional zero houselessness among the veteran population. So our numbers among veteran population were way down prior to the pandemic. We are seeing those rise now. So we definitely have people who need the resource. But that's another piece where whenever I see our numbers dipping a little lower, I do wonder about family supports or other resources among other programs in the community, and really just like to hope that folks are accessing those supports as well. And then if not, that they know how to get a hold of us or interact with our outreach teams when they need it, so they can enroll in the program as it's needed. Yeah. I will say too, my last thought about the housing climate, I could probably just rattle on. I think what's exciting about our veteran programs, especially compared to some of the other programs we are able to run, when we think about this climate, we are able to we can afford people time to work on what they need to work on in a unique way compared to our general population. So we can have someone come in the door and first couple months, they're just getting settled and stabilized, but then we can work on housing for 1.5 years. And like, we have the time for someone to be in that searching process for that amount of time without the risk of losing their space, especially if they're following, you know, all the policies and rules of the program, which I think can be really beneficial for someone, because what we see is otherwise is folks just in a very stressful situation and environment, and it's hard to focus on everything you need to do. I know all of us can imagine when you're in a state of stress, it's hard to do anything. So I think what we can afford folks through, especially our transitional programs with the veteran programs, is time to really work on what they want and ideally get them into that next step when it becomes available.
Alrighty. Thank you all so much. Are there any other questions? Well, if not, I will, excuse me, release everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today and talking with us about the veteran programs. Oh, I guess just in wrapping up, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We will be talking about the veteran programs a lot this summer. Our picnic for the POV is going to be raising funds for this program. And I invite you all to join us. It'll be at 5:30 to 7 on Wednesday, July 13th at Ogren at the baseball stadium. And I will be sending out the invites here soon. And yeah, Carrie or Marilyn, if either of you are interested in joining us, I would love to see your faces there. So alrighty, thank you so much.